in-state recruiting is an area where I know, Jim, you and we share so many agreements on. This is important. We want to get our guys. And I want to bring up a couple of tweets here. And this is what's happened here over the course of the last couple of weeks here. We've Carter Nelson from Ainsworth. He's a 2024 guy. He's blessed to have received another offer. We also have Malachi Coleman. He is set up for his official visit dates June 3rd here. So at the first of the Friday night camps, Friday Night Lights. And then the one that has been kind of a little bit of a mystery here the last few weeks is Kade McIntyre from Fremont. He just got the offer, and we show it here from Iowa. He also has one, I think, from Minnesota and some other, Division I FBS ones, but not a Nebraska one yet. To just quickly glance over all the offers that we have out there, and Redcasters, you've seen this graphic a number of times now. We do have 7 offers to 23 kids. 3 of them are committed from in-state. We also have the 4 offers out to 24 and then 2 out to 25. So there's a number of offers out there, but we still know about, obviously Flores, the quarterback from Gretna, went to Oklahoma State. There was also a kid from Omaha Westside that just went to Vanderbilt. So that's 9 FBS D1 kids. And now McIntyre, that makes it 10 in-state that are getting these offers. I mean, that's a great thing. Let's start with that it's a great thing that Nebraska kids are being recognized, identified, and pursued. But, Jim, I'll start with you on what do you think when you see all that? And I guess also the McIntyre one, do we need to get that one out to him too?
Yeah. So I think obviously on the surface it's kind of exciting. We talked about this a little bit in our DM conversations, but the amount of talent in Nebraska has been steadily increasing, right, over the last 3-4 years. And it's only getting better down the road, and kind of coincides what we're seeing next door in Iowa, right? Their in-state talent is increasing as well. I think they had 21 3-star players a year ago. So in the Midwest, you're seeing, whether it's the offseason, whether it's the Steve Warren academies, but there is more talent being developed in Nebraska than we've seen in a long time. So Honky, to your point, that's a great thing. More kids getting scholarships, more opportunities to play college football. You got to love that. So that's interesting and fun to watch. And, as far as McIntyre goes, I know we kind of disagreements about that. And, my frustration a little bit was, I want to see in-state kids offered, right? Kids, especially I think when we see, let's face it, a team that's beat us, right, in Iowa, going in and saying, hey, you're worthy of our program. We want you in our program. And so as Nebraska fans, we see that, and it's, why aren't we offering? Why aren't we going in there and seeing the exact same thing Iowa's seeing, right? He's a kid that's 6'4". His brother just ran a 10.5, 100-meter dash or whatever it was. I mean, the kid's obviously got talent. And so I think for me, it's a little bit of frustration just not knowing. We're not involved in the meetings, right? We're not there. We don't understand. Mm-hmm. We don't see their board. We know we have limited spots. So I think that's kind of hard as a fan to kind of rationalize sometimes. And you kind of have to just trust the process and, see what happens. But I can understand both sides of it for sure. But it is kind of interesting with his case in particular.
Yeah, the trust the process is kind of a challenging thing, I think, for a lot of fans out there. It's when we lose a Casey Rogers, and I retweeted a tweet that we did right after losing Rogers, and everyone's jumping off the, oh my gosh, what's going on? And it was like, hey, everyone settle down, eat some dip, you'll be okay. The transfer portal swings both ways, right? And we'll get our chance to get some back. And I think that's the thing for me, like when I pay very little attention, honestly, to recruiting in terms of the specifics about a player, especially until they actually come here. I just don't spend a lot of time on players until they've, officially committed and they're here. And the reason behind that is because there's just so many dang kids out there. There's so many stories, right? There's so many things. And I wait. And my big issue, or my big thing, is I want to make sure there's not systemic issues. And so if we miss on an in-state kid, that's one thing. If we miss on an in-state kid and we're not offering the other 7 that we have, that's where, I don't feel systemically like we're not doing something right. There can be a ton of reasons why I have no idea why we haven't offered one kid yet, but he certainly seems like he's getting the right offer sheets now, or the offers coming to him. And to your point, I mean, that's a risk if you lose a kid out of state to a team that you're playing against every year. And if you get beat by that kid too, we saw that with Noah Fant. We've seen that, Keegan Johnson now is over there. I mean, there's that particular team, but there's other schools that have done the same thing. That's not a great image at the very least. Dave, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the overall back and forth is on, you hopefully have set up our culture to the point that every player in Nebraska wants to come here first and foremost. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's that component that even if they're not coming here, they're coming here to walk on. Right. And so I think that the concern is if we're not paying any attention to them, right, then like, how do we, are we offering, I think there's a million reasons why we do or don't, but in a state that isn't ripe with, dozens of 4 and 5 stars like Georgia or Florida or Texas, I think the idea is, we got to close off the borders to get these guys to come here. But, I think kind of like you're saying, it's hard to speak to that because then you see some of the results that we're seeing recently, right? You pick up Wynn, you pick up Mathis, you got Casey Thompson, you get Chuba Purdy, like the staff does have a plan and they are filling it, right? So like there was a ton of needs coming into the off season and they're filling them. So I think, it's easy for us, sitting here on podcasts just to be able to be like, they don't know what they're doing. And they're like, oh yeah, well, I guess we did just get 2 Alabama 4 stars that just recruited here and left Saban to come here. So like, I think that, they're not quite as blind leading the blind as maybe they come off when you're like, oh yeah, I guess we did have quite an off-season transfer portal haul.
Mm-hmm. 15 so far. Well, 15 if Washington is indeed in here. We'll talk about that on the offense here. Rob, I guess let's take a break here for a second. Is there anything that's come in comment-wise or any questions or anything yet from the Redcasters?
Not a ton of questions. We did get, I put this up here a second ago, Eric Stockinson said, regardless of whether a single high schooler gets offered or not, it's apparent that there's a genuine focus by the staff to recruit homegrown Huskers. And I have to say that a lot of people are agreeing with that. I think, Benning was saying that he's seeing a genuine commitment by this staff to like be seen in the Omaha schools. And there was what did he say? And I'm not familiar. Admittedly, I'm not familiar with a lot of schools in Nebraska. You are, but he was saying there was a few schools that Nebraska hadn't even gone to visit in years.
Yeah, Bellevue East. I have the audio,
East,
but it's
I knew it was an
East
something.
Yeah, it's
Bellevue
East.
But he was saying that, the coaches were just kind of ecstatic that, the coaches at Bellevue East were ecstatic that they were showing up there. So I do think that there is a more concerted effort by this staff, and especially with a lot of the new guys that have just come in right this year. So with Frost 2.0, as I like to call it, and so it's a whole kind of different look. It's interesting to me because while people still want to complain about the lack of in-state recruiting, again, and I explained this, I'm always looking at the positive side of things. The amount of in-state recruiting that they're doing right now, even if they are still losing 1 or 2 guys, a majority of these kids are starting to come to Nebraska, right? So then hopefully that's when we will start to build the walk-on culture again, as Coach Osborne said, last week, that, was such a big deal there that pushed so many of the guys that were the big-time recruits to play better as well. So, I don't know. I think it's like you said, it's a process. So for once, I agree with you, Honky. And,
Hey, Rob, while we have Dave on the line with you, can you hold up the Kool-Aid for him?
As a matter of fact, yeah. And I was drinking.
Oh, it's so good.
Hold on. Yeah,
so delicious.
I was drinking out of it when you were giving whatever you want to call that. I won't call that a hot take, but yeah, and that was kind of a dig. But there's also a glass that I drink out of too. So the lighting in here is a little bit weird during this time of year, I'm starting to find out. So it's the first time I've really been recording from this office. So I apologize, podcasters. And for those of you that can't see, totally ignore that last 10 seconds.
All right. Well, Jim was looking like he was flipping sides and everything. So he just dropped off for a second. Well, hopefully we'll get him back on here. But to go back to that, that basically...
Is this where we get to talk about him?
Yeah, we can say whatever we want now. Jim and I, Dave was privy to all that. We had our nice little discussion, our back and forth. And what I love about the thread that we have is that it's 3 passionate Husker fans that care deeply, and everyone's kind of doing their own part. Dave, again, I think what you've been doing, like on just the personal side with like the collective, is amazing. That's just one fan going out there and saying, well, number one, hey, I'm going to go build up the largest fan following, on social media there with Husk Guys. I'm going to go and build a collective and do what we can. This is just, we're normal people. Hey, Rob, you and I, we're just going to go do a Husker fan podcast and go get Osborne on and talk with Benning and talk with, Carricker and all that. Why not? You can take the energy that you have and you can turn around and be negative with it as a Husker fan, or you can turn around and you can be positive, and people can call you Kool-Aid drinking for it. But who wants to be negative all the time?
Well, I guess that for me, that comes back to like the Husker fans are like unbreakable, right?
Yeah.
Like we finished 3-9 last year. We watched 9 losses.
9 times.
And I have spent every waking moment this offseason, and all I have thought about is like, how do we get back to winning? Right. And that's like it. That's all I think about. It's like it's an illness. I think we were saying even before we started, like there's hockey games on tonight, there's playoff basketball, there's playoff hockey. And I'm like, no, I don't have time for this, because all I can think about is I got to watch film for all the recruits that we have. I don't even know what I'm going to do with all that film, but I got to watch it. I have to watch I've watched Casey Thompson's highlight reel for like 15 times. Now I have to catch up on wins and Marcus Washington's. I'm like breaking down film that like, I don't know, people have cracked me up. They're always like, what, who's your pro sports team? Like, I don't have time for any pro sports teams.
It's funny, Dave, that you say that, because I feel like you and I are that Spider-Man meme where we're pointing at each other. but here, but you're making some great points too, because Husker fans really are our own worst enemy. So today I played in this golf tournament all day with this guy, but the guy that I got paired up with, and I didn't even know him, and he comes in, I'm wearing a Husker hat, Husker, shirt, everything, like sitting in the cart. And this guy walks over, he goes, "Hey, I think we're paired up." And I look, and he's wearing all Michigan stuff. Right. So we're talking, super nice guy. His wife and him are from Ann Arbor. They went to school there. They just moved out here because she got a job working for the Colorado Department of Public Health. So she's like, we're talking, we've got a lot in common. And he's like, "So, what kind of Husker fan are you?" Blah. And I was telling him about the podcast. He's like, "Oh." So then he like literally goes on, and he started following us today for the podcast, followed us on social media. And he was just like, "Man, I have to tell you, every single Husker game I was watching last year, because you guys were probably the most exciting team to watch last year, not just because of like how you guys were losing those games, but because it's unbelievable that you would lose those games." He's like, "I was rooting for you." He's like, "Even when you played us, I was rooting for you. And I couldn't believe they called that a fumble when Martinez was obviously tackled and stopped, And so I was thinking to myself, and I looked at him, and I was just like, "Dude, we Huskers need fans like you. Like, wear Michigan stuff to all the games, but come root for us," because that's the attitude that I want to hear. Like, this guy was like pumping us up.
It's easy to have that attitude when you're not the fan of the program.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you're not having your soul ripped out.
I get that, but my point is he took last season. He's looking at last season, and he's just like, "I don't want to play you this year."
He took our losses so well, no doubt.
Well, yeah, but he doesn't. But he doesn't even want to play us this year, because he honestly sees a big turnaround. And I was joking, saying 15-0 national champs, and he's like, "You know what?" I laughed. He's like, "But if it happened, I actually wouldn't be surprised if they played the same way they did last year, but the luck goes the other way."
If we have the success in the portal that the other team in Michigan last year did, that's what would be the key right now. And let's talk about